Hello and welcome back to the Blues Focus podcast with me, Tommy Kelsall, Jamie Lawler and Zach Woods. Good evening, lads. How are you?
All good, thanks, Tommy. All good.
All good, man. Everything's all
And
gravy.
and also tonight's special guest, Cliff Horrocks from the Blues Trust. How are you tonight?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Good to see you all. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, so this episode of the podcast is basically going to be talking about how things at the club are going at the moment. Obviously, with the recent response from the chairman about the open letter, which you were there for, handing into the main reception, and talking also a bit about the behind the scenes stuff at the club as well and everything, and how the future of the club can look like as well, because it is a bit of a nervy time at the moment. So I'm pretty sure we can all agree with that. But if you want to do a quick introduction of yourself and what about the Blues Trust you would do at the work there.
Yeah, so I'm chair of the Blues Trust at the moment. I've been chair for the last, about 4 years, I think, something like that. Blues Trust originated when they was having problems with Carson Young as the owner, and I just became a member so that I could contribute to the people that were trying to sort that out. And then over the years, I think Blues Trust, after the Carson Young era, sort of dipped down, and became a very small organisation, and they were desperate for some people to help, and so I helped, and then got roped into being the chair and stuff like that. I do enjoy doing it. It's sometimes a strange thing to do because we go to the games for the football and watching the match and having a good day out and stuff. But the work of the Blues Trust is sort of behind the scenes to a certain degree. Trying to worry about the club's future and things like that, and looking at accounts and that sort of issues. So it's not the most exciting stuff in the world for most fans, to be fair. But and when it comes to protests, that's a bit more sexy, I guess. So and to be fair, our membership always goes up when there's issues on the pitch and people wanting to protest. So that's sort of the life of in the trust, if you like. But
I was just going to say, I imagine it's a very important job and everything, and what you do is hopefully having a good impact on the club and everything, because I know you work extremely hard. But I guess before, at the moment, things are they're not going great off the pitch at the moment. So if we get into some maybe more positive things about Blues, what are some of your favourite Blues moments? How long have you been a fan? How did you get into watching and following and supporting Birmingham City?
Yeah, originally my granddad took me down, and the first game, but I can't remember, it was in '63, I think, against Norwich. I've got a programme somewhere that my granddad gave me for that game. But I really started going and having a season ticket in the '70s. So the promotion runs into what was then Division 1 in the '70s, and that's my background and starting at the Blues. Been there ever since. I boycotted them for about 10 years when they appointed Ron Saunders as a manager. I was playing football and stuff on a Saturday afternoon, and most games were a Saturday afternoon, so it wasn't a great hardship to boycott it then. But I did say I'm boycotting it because Saunders is the manager. But
if I'm right in thinking, is Ron Saunders, was he the old Villa manager?
Yeah,
he came to Blues, yeah.
And Jim Smith was the manager before then. People might remember him. But fantastic manager, great guy. Yeah. And they sacked him and brought Saunders in. It's beginning of the end. Beginning of the end. Going over the expressway like that. They're always agents. We sent McLeish the other way, didn't we, to get our own back? So that was all right.
After we did really well.
Yeah. In terms of favourite moments, then I'm sure the Carling Cup's well up there for you. But any other standout moments as a Blues fan?
No, definitely the Carling Cup's the one for me. The promotion when we were up at Sheffield Wednesday, I think it was '72, getting promotion and then going down to Orient with the Millwall fans trying to get the game abandoned. Because if we didn't get promoted, they were getting promoted, so they all went to the Orient game. And so, yeah, it was good times. And there was some great times in Division 1 there, I can remember a game where we beat Liverpool 4-1 at home and stuff like that. And, it was all good stuff. Happy days. But for me, it's the Carling Cup, and I just remember being sat on a packed train on the way back with a bottle of champagne on the table and didn't give us anything about anything. You just, it's happened.
It's just that stunned feeling, just sat on the train, just like, what on earth has just happened? We were talking about it on the podcast a few weeks ago, actually, when it was the anniversary, because it was about a week ago, wasn't it, when the anniversary was for it, wasn't it?
It's 27th of February.
The only team in the West Midlands to win a trophy this millennium, remember?
Still the best achievement. They ain't going to win anything anytime soon.
No, it's nice. It's nice to have that to brag about at least. But in terms of the open letter that was sent, obviously, we've recently had the response from the club and everything. What are your thoughts on the way the club responded to it? Are you fairly happy with it?
Yeah, I'll start by saying I'm glad they responded because there was a danger that they wouldn't even respond, I guess. So I'm glad they responded. And I know from speaking to basically Ian Dutton at the club, the MD, that the chair was involved in writing that. And, so it sort of is from him and it has gone up and BHSL know about it and stuff. But it's a bit underwhelming, really, isn't it? I understand the, we can't say anything legally. And to a great extent, that's true about, new owners and how they're getting on with the deal. But I think the bottom line for fans is we want to know whether they're really trying to sell the club or whether they're just stringing us along. And, the answer doesn't help with that. I think the answer helps with getting the fan-led review recommendations of shadow boards or fan advisory boards in place. Again, we've been talking to the club about that for the last 12 months and trying to get that sorted, and it's always been blocked by the board. Maybe we have had some action and the board have changed their mind and decide they want to do it, but that might be because white papers come out saying that they're going to have to do it when legislation comes through anyway. So in some respects, we're not being given a lot. So, I mean, I guess the view going forward is pick up the scraps that you can and let's get, a fan advisory board in place, because I think that will help with communications and stuff like that. And it creates a forum where they can talk about confidential things. The people in there can't let it out afterwards, but they can say, progress is good, progress is bad, or whatever, and things like that. So at least you can get something out of those things to the wider community. But it can also, and it will also give fans the chance to say, well, we think that's a really bad idea, or we think that's a really good idea, or push things forward. So
is that what the idea is then for the fan board then? Because it's obviously it's advertised like that, but like, is that genuinely the real point behind it? Because they could plaster it over in some other ways, perhaps.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's fan boards up and down the country work. Some work really well and some don't work very well at all. The club have got to buy into it to make it work properly. But again, it's just part of fan engagement, having a fan board. Or a fan advisory board. It's got to be sitting with all the other stuff that you need to do. It's not instead of fans forums to talk about match day experiences and stuff like that. It's not in lieu of communications. With fans. But it's a way of being able to talk with fans about the finances of the club and the legal issues with. No other environment, like a fans forum and stuff, because everybody's free to go out and put what they like on social media and stuff after that. And quite rightly so. But so there's never an environment where they can't say we can't tell you because of legal reasons. But the fan advisory board would be an environment where that excuse doesn't wash.
I see, yeah. So you could talk about some more in detail confidential stuff to those particular fans on that board. Yeah. Which would be of how many? What type of fans would be invited into those boards?
Well, we've put suggestions in to the club on the terms of reference for the board and stuff. based mainly on the Football Supporters Association. They've got some base terms of reference that should be used and stuff. But in effect, I think I'll talk about our suggestion, but they're all very similar. Would be, I can't remember the numbers now, but I think it was 7 fan representatives and 7, from the club. They have to include the board members. So and a lot of fan forums say one of the owners has to come there at least once a year. So
right, yeah,
like that to get it to the right level. Obviously, as Blues Trust, we're suggesting that Blues Trust has a place on that fan advisory board, and you need to do things like make sure you've got somebody who can understand equalities issues and things like that, so that if you're having a debate, there's somebody in the room with that sort of knowledge to really help not go in the wrong direction on some of those things. But generally, supporters, the way we're suggesting it goes is that people apply to be on the fan board and get interviewed basically by the club, and any of the positions from fans that the club have agreed are just positions to be filled, like as we would say the Blues Trust. I think there's an equalities place that needs to go on there, and maybe some other groups can make a case for a position to be on there. But I think each group would have to make a case, and then you need to have some. I think we've suggested in the past that maybe the fans forum could vote particular people onto there or something like that. But,
so it's not going to be like another Twitter, is it, or something?
No,
it's going to be much more formal, much more
constructive.
They
usually end up with between 4 and 8 meetings a year. It's usually a requirement for a minimum of 4 meetings a year, and at least 2 of those the chairman has to be there. Things like that. And when recruiting to that board, you probably need to look at people's other skills as well as being a Blues fan. Obviously that's a requisite, but other skills that they can bring to a boardroom, really. Because at the moment, obviously, it would be quite a few arguments going on in that meeting, I would guess.
Yeah.
Why don't you go and stuff like that? However, in a better environment, it's really good for the club to be able to run stuff by fans. Progress, visions for the future, ground developments, stuff like that. What their budgets are going forward and things like that, which are obviously confidential and you can't do in a fans forum, but you can do, and it really helps the club make better decisions if they've got something like that in place. It's I think if you read the stuff in the Football Supporters Association, I think the advert for it basically says, if you're a club, why aren't you doing this? It gives you a competitive advantage, and it does. So there's good reason for doing it, but it can't be the only way you engage with fans. All the other engagement routes have to be there. Fans forums, proper communication, and
absolutely. That's all we want as fans. We just want a bit more communication in terms of what's going on at the club, what's happening in terms of this sort of fan thing. It might be a question you can't answer, but do you know how much of a say these fans are going to have? Say the 7 people who are within this board, are they going to have much of a voice in terms of they say this and this will happen, or is it a collective decision? Like, do you know how it's going to look? Or
well, I think usually what happens is major issues get aired as a discussion topic rather than the club coming along and saying we're doing this, and somebody says, well, I like that, and somebody else says, well, I don't like that. I think if it works well, it works as a discussion group. We're thinking about the following issues, and usually the agenda's put together. Quite often they have co-chairs to it, so there's somebody from the club and somebody from the fans who put the agenda together for meetings and stuff like that, and so everybody gets a say in what needs to be discussed. and a discussion will happen. It hasn't got any power as such to say, and we want this.
Yeah.
But if you're a decision maker at a football club, then getting a lot of opinions in, and the fans' opinions, is really helpful. Most of the, like if I think about the Blues Trust Board, and to be fair, a lot of the people that run a lot of the other fan groups, they've all run their own companies or been in positions in big companies, and they're not we're not a bunch of idiots in the fan base. There's a lot of good knowledge and a lot of good experience. People have got lives other than the Blues, which some of them are quite
well successful. Yeah. It's interesting, the fan board, obviously, because we can really look at what the future of the Blues. But one thing I was going to ask actually was the potential ownership takeovers and everything, but also as well as the previous one that has recently been under investigation, obviously the Richardson and Lopez consortium that now fell through, and obviously now we're potentially linked with Dale, who could be taking us over as well. So what's your sort of view on that? What can you tell us on that?
Oh, I can probably talk about the Richardson one quite a lot if we as we need to, because we as a trust we knew Paul Richardson, and personally I knew him reasonably well, just to do with the Blues. And the reason for that is one of the remits of Blues Trust is if the club enters administration, then the administrator under EFL rules has to speak to the trust or the fan group or the a fan group, and it has to be a regulated body, if you like, the fan group that they speak to, which is what the trust is. So we always have to have a plan B in place for if the club goes bust tomorrow, what would we say to the administrator about what we think should happen and stuff. And so for a number of years, Paul Richardson had been our plan B, if you like. So if all of a sudden the club had gone into administration, we would have rocked up and said, well, we've got this plan of setting it out like this, and the finance is going to come from Paul Richardson, and he'll really be the owner. But, obviously our solution has got a lot of fan involvement and stuff like that. But, and so, that plan B is a bit dead in the water, to be fair, because Paul, especially if he's up for some charges, which, as he says, he'll defend vigorously, and I'm not sure Paul himself should be charged, but we'll find out.
I was going to ask you that actually.
Yeah,
I will ask you that later. I will ask you, do you believe he is innocent of these things? Because it did seem to come out of nowhere, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a side. We'll talk about it in a bit. There's a side of me that can see a strategy from the EFL which is very helpful for the Blues, but we don't like the EFL a great deal. But and they have spoken to me in the past, certainly before Richardson one was going through. To have as you say, a bit like a fan advisory board. They'll speak to me, but it's confidential and stuff like that. And now it's a bit past, we can talk about it a bit better. But I think the charges are helping with the sale of the club, but they obviously didn't help. Well, Paul Richardson never got over the line with the EFL. Paul thought he could get over the line with the EFL, but the deal fell through before he had to get over the line, if you like. One of the things you have to do if you're trying to get through the EFL is obviously do the owners and directors tests. And to be fair, I don't know whether Paul had done the owners and directors tests or not. Or I presume he'd put an application in and not had an answer back, because they also have a look at your business plan and how the club's going to run and where you're going to get your money from. And so I know he hadn't proven all his funding to the EFL. His view at the time was, well, you can't prove your funding until you're going to do it, because you can't take out any loans or anything until you're certain about it. So it was trying to prove his funding without it being in the bank account, if you like. And it's a bit like I don't know, when you go for a mortgage, you say I've got a letter saying I can have one, but you haven't got the money. So, and he was never going to be a absolutely, rolling in cash owner. He was going to be need to make this work as a going concern owner. I like the idea because he was a Blues fan and he genuinely got full of heart. And I genuinely believe that the reason he was doing it was to try and save the club rather than, make any money.
Yeah.
I'm 100% agreement in that. I think I never thought Paul was coming in once to try and snake money out the club. I thought he was coming in as a Birmingham fan to try and save us from oblivion, basically.
He bid for the club when these owners got it, and didn't get it at that point.
On the note of the owners, you were saying obviously Paul had to do the the test and send it off to them and stuff. They were soon to approve BSHL though, weren't they? So you love the EFL for approving people.
Yeah.
We had Carson prove before that, but that's okay.
To be fair, you can't slag the EFL about Carson. It was a Premier League
but
approved him.
Yes, it was actually. Yeah.
It was the Prem, which is even worse. I meant to be the league.
It makes it even worse. But yeah, no, I think times have moved on a little bit with the EFL and stuff, and because since that time they brought the financial fair play and stuff in. But if you harp on about the white paper a little bit and the fan-led review, the reason that's having to happen is in the past, the EFL, even the Premier League, and they organised competitions for clubs that really had local ownership and were concerned about football. And then big business became part of football, and they've just got no capabilities of regulating business at all, the EFL, the Premier League. And so it does need somebody else to do that. And hopefully we'll get the independent regulator.
Which is something that the Trust have been pushing for, if I'm right.
Yeah. We've been on this for 3-4 years now. And so, it's something that feels like it's coming to fruition. And it's not just us at Blues Trust doing it. Trusts up and down the country have been pushing this with the Football Supporters Association. I can remember lobbying government, God knows how many years ago, when the Tory party held its conference in Birmingham, and I went along and they were having a sporting debate. I'll tell you the thing that I really remember about this. It's a bit of a reminiscence, but we were, and there was I don't know, they have these meetings outside the main conference, and we went to one of those, and the FA, the guys from the FA were there and stuff, and we were talking about, how football should go in the future. And I actually said to the guy from the FA at the time, well, surely the FA should be running this and dictating it, but actually you're a bit part player to the Premier League and the EFL and stuff. And he said, well, yeah, he says we should, but we haven't got the appetite for that. I'm going to remember to this day. So, that really shows that the football authorities are in no position to run the business side of football, I think I said to somebody earlier today, I said, if you thought about a bank doing investment without the Financial Conduct Authority, what a state it'd be in? Well, have a look at football. That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
It's just out of my own curiosity, really, with the EFL and stuff, because obviously we're under investigation. I know there's stuff we can and can't say. Could the EFL theoretically tell BSHL they have to sell? Can they sanction that?
They can't tell them that they have to sell. That's they can ban people, individuals, for taking part in football and being in football governance. So interestingly enough, at the moment, with those charges that are in at the moment, obviously the club and the EFL haven't said who's been charged, but I think the press have been very clear that I think Paul Richardson, Maxi Lopez, I think Matt Southall, who was going to be the chief exec, but also Von Petch has been charged. He's the biggest shareholder in Birmingham City.
Oh, is it?
He's got a 75% share, if I'm not wrong.
It's round about that, because he owns 25% in his own right, or 21%. That stuff that they're going to sell, and then he's a big shareholder in BHSL as well.
Yeah.
So if you add them all together, he's the biggest shareholder. I don't know whether it comes to 50% altogether, but he is the biggest shareholder. And so apparently, and I can't say whether it's right or wrong, but the press say that he's been charged as well. And if that is the case, that's why I think the EFL have got the EFL want to see them gone. Don't get me wrong; they're a blot on their reputation and everything else, aren't they? And they just causing grief. So they want them gone, really, although they can't openly say that. So if he gets a banning order, the biggest shareholder and the person that owns the ground and something else, a 21% outright, then there's got to be a lot of shuffling round about how you run a club when the biggest shareholder's banned from doing that. In effect, he has to sell up, but they can't tell him to sell up. But I see, yeah. And I think the next set of charges that we're expecting out, which is Wang Yahui's involvement in the club, even though he's not on any paperwork anywhere, this Mr. King, and there is some evidence that he is involved through the Singapore courts and stuff like that. There's only a little bit of evidence. I think he's involved across the whole board. I think he's involved in Monpechi's stuff as well, but there's no actual evidence for that. But there is a small bit of evidence that he's the beneficial owner of Dragon Villa, and so that's why the AFL are investigating that, because they've got some paperwork from Singapore courts that don't tie in with the paperwork that the club have sent in with owners, and they're saying, well, explain this. So whether the club have explained it, I don't know, but at some point in the not too distant future, I think we'll be charged with that as well, about having a beneficial owner that hasn't been named or passed any and stuff like that. And I think at that point they could start banning anybody that's involved in BHSL, really, and stuff like that. And so I think this goes down a road of ending up with that many banning orders that you can't own the club. And so that's why I think the EFL stuff is quite helpful to getting it sold at the moment. But there's other different views that the EFL are completely incompetent and they're just having a crack at anything.
Yeah.
With that,
go on, Tommy.
No, okay. What I was just going to ask, when do you reckon that could be potential to happen? So, when you say sometime in the future that banning order or that fine might come through, how long would that be?
So the ones where they've put the charges out at the moment won't be till next season. They go through a hearing, and that it usually takes months to arrange a hearing and stuff like that. And then after the hearing, the results known, and I think you can appeal the hearing as well. So, I think it's just, from my point of view, I'm not too fussed about that end of it, because I think it just builds pressure to sell. The fact that there could be a banning order around the corner for the biggest shareholder and stuff like that, there's got to be putting pressure on them to sell.
Yeah. And do you know what these charges could look like in terms of what punishment could be given?
So the current charges, and we don't know what the penalties are, and the penalties are secret, but a similar case. Yeah, well, they're not disclosed. It's like who's been charged.
Why is that then?
Disclosed. Well, I guess they're saying, well, there's a hearing to be had, and we don't know the result until there's a hearing.
Right. Okay.
So, but the EFL will have said. Actually, I don't know whether they say yet, but they'll say at the hearing what they think the penalty should be, and then the hearing will say, well, we think that's fair or not fair, type thing.
It's a bit like a court case kind of thing. Yeah.
But the closest to what we're in at the moment was at Rochdale, I think it was, a year or so ago, where there was a load of shareholders transferring shares behind the scenes, And the club had nothing to do with it because, there were shareholders just swapping shares and buying and selling shares without telling the club, sort of thing, which, a bit like what we are. And what happened with Rochdale is the EFL gave them they gave banning orders out for 2 years to the people involved, the individuals involved. And they gave the club a 6-point deduction, but they suspended the deduction if it didn't happen again. And I think that was a way of saying, look, we will go after the individuals, and so long as the club isn't involved in it, we'll suspend that sentence. So I think, and I actually think it wasn't a bad way of dealing with it.
It sounds sensible, doesn't it? It's not punishing the club individually, is it?
Yeah.
It's like you said, isn't it? Like the EFL, with us Birmingham fans, Cliff, like you were saying, a lot of us fans seem to hate the EFL at the minute.
Yeah.
So if they do a suspended thing like that, it's kind of like them going to us, we know it's not you, we know it's not your football club, it's your owners. So, however, if we do this,
I don't know whether the EFL would say that's the message, but that's the message I take from it.
Yeah, give me some respect.
Interestingly enough, the rules around what the independent regulator might be, if the punishments that the independent regulator would give out are basically banning orders and fines and stuff, but no sporting penalties for owners for owners getting it wrong. They won't have the power to do points deductions and stuff like that. It'll still be left to the football authorities to do that sort of thing. So I think that's right. If the owners are playing about with the finances and the future of a club, then they're the people that should be done. It's no use fining the club a load of money if they haven't got any, is it?
Can't find us what we haven't got.
Just going back on towards Dale then. What's your hopes and sort of ideas that he could bring to the club?
I'll start off by saying I'm really glad that it's not all over the press and having a commentary. I'll go back to the Paul thing. I think it was Paul's strategy to put it in the public domain, to put pressure on the club to get it, or the owners to get it signed. It looks as if Jeremy Dale has took a different approach to that. He's keeping it close to his chest. I think all I know is that the people within the club, the senior management in the club are seeing people doing due diligence around the club. So something is going on. I would hope it can happen quickly, but it's such a complex deal that anybody has to put together to try and buy the Blues. And there's that many legalities about. If you were buying it outright, then you can take a chance on it and buy it outright. But if you end up buying it over, a 2.5 year period or whatever it was, which I think is what's on offer, the same as the Richardson thing and the same as the Bassini thing, as it happens.
We don't talk about Bassini.
Yeah. Zach will start screaming if you say Bassini.
Yeah, we don't mention his name on here anymore.
So I think it's the same sort of deal. But the legalities and the complications of doing that over a 2-year period to be able to persuade your money men and your backers that the money is safe, and that they won't do a runner with it, is really tricky. And so to get that tied up legally, and the other side to that is the club or the owners or the BHSL. They've done the voluntary thing to the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, saying we're looking and talking to investors for 21% of the club. Well, I'm not sure whether that's right, because no investor is going to have 21% of the club for a load of money and then not have control of it. So they are looking at control and buying it, over a period of time for the whole amount. But I don't know whether that's illegal that they haven't said that in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange notice or not.
Yeah, Sorry, that's what confused, because I'm 99. I'm willing to be wrong here, Cliff. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I'm willing to die on my hill, but I'm 99% sure when Richardson initially did the Talksport interview, he said that he has got 21 point something percent,
Yeah.
but has full dictatorship on what happens at
Yeah.
Birmingham City,
Yeah. And
which is
and
what threw me off.
that was right. And there was a contract signed saying that. All the
Which is why,
contracts are signed with the Paul Richardson thing. It's just that it needed EFL approval. But as that went on, the charges come out, and Paul wanted to change it, and the club would say that, well, he couldn't prove that he'd got the money, so it's fallen through. They got to a deadline, a drop dead deadline in the contracts, that either which they could have extended, but the club wouldn't extend it.
So it was pretty much them just messing them about in the end, which is what caused Paul to pull out the deal.
Yeah, that's what Paul would say. The club would say that actually he had plenty of time to get EFL approval, etc., and he still hadn't got it. So,
So I'm quite curious around, the statement that came out from Birmingham City when the deal ended. From how you could read that, it looked like either way, because it said the owners have exercised their right to pull the deal. So I'm not sure, was that BSHL pulling the deal, or is that Richardson pulling the deal? When you read it, the initial Birmingham City statement, you kind of like, to me, looked like BSHL had pulled the deal fully at that point and gone, no.
Yeah, that's what they said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether that, I think it had got to a point where it wasn't going to happen by the look of it. But the Paul Richardson side to that story, and what we did put out at the time, was that he asked for an extra clause to go in the contract over the EFL charges, basically saying if the EFL charges resulted in a points deduction that also resulted in relegation, then he wanted the value of the club, or the amount that he was paying to be reduced.
Yeah.
And they said they wouldn't do that. That's the Paul Richardson side of the story. The club side of the story is we put a long stop deadline in this contract for to pending EFL approval, and that didn't happen, so we've pulled it. So there's two sides to every story, I guess.
Of course.
Yeah. I think with the oh no, sorry, were you going to say something then?
No, go on, you go.
I was just going to add to the Jeremy Dale stuff, obviously, because it's probably the deal that looks most likely to happen at the moment. But obviously, being the Blues, it could just all fall apart tomorrow. I just don't, because obviously it is so quiet at the moment. It doesn't seem like much is going to happen, because we've been down this road before with Richardson, where it's been very much in the public, and now it's gone a bit quieter. But there was also a point, I can't remember who we were away against, where, I'll come back to me in a sec, where the deal was just off again. So it's pretty much like it goes on and then off. I mean, is there ever going to be a point that you can possibly see that it looks like almost nailed on if they can get past a certain goal of certain targets to reach?
I think the goals that a buyer has to get through is it's I think they have to have a business plan and vision for the future, and they have to prove how they're going to fund that, and obviously pass the owners and directors test. If you assume the people involved can pass the owners and directors tests, who knows? I think it's not American. I think it's Canadian backers.
I thought that, as well. Yeah, that's what I read.
But so if you assume that all that side of it is okay, then rocking up at the EFL with your proof that you've got the money and your business plan that they're happy with, then it relies on obviously BHSL signing the deal. So I think, and that deal is complicated. Lawyers from both sides will be poring over stuff, and how long does it take lawyers to pore over complicated situations? It can drag on forever. I think my view is, within the next couple of months, it's either on or it's off. But you just don't know. And and is there somebody else in the pipeline waiting to step in and have another crack at it? My worry is that it's a string along thing from BHSL rather than a serious attempt to sell it. That's my big worry behind it, and why I think, you know, the protests and keeping the pressure on is really important. They have to be embarrassed to own the club and want to sell it. I think is we've got to look at it.
Yeah, that's almost what I was going to ask as well. Firstly, do you agree with the protests, you know, the recent one against West Brom, and do you think there's more as fans and I guess people watching at home could be doing to, I don't know, force a change and you know, for the future of our club, really?
Yeah, no, I really agree with the protests. I mean, as a trust, we always take the line of, you know, it needs to be safe and it needs to be legal, and that's. But as long as it's safe and legal, we're on board with it, really, and you know, we'll take part in it. I think I've got a sort of personal view that it's good to have protests and stuff at the ground. There's no point in doing it every week and stuff like that. It's good to have stuff at the ground because it keeps everybody on edge, and it keeps the people at the club of a mind when they're talking to the board and stuff to say, yeah, we've got a real issue here and stuff like that. But I think we've got to take the protest to Hong Kong, Cambodia, or wherever, and you know, and we can't get a jumbo jet full of blue noses to get out. But we've got to find a way of getting into the press and stuff over in Hong Kong and stuff. So people, you know, on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and business people within Hong Kong and stuff are saying to the people that on paper own BHSL, what's going on here? You've got a bit of an issue and all that lot. And culturally, being embarrassed like that is a really big issue. So. I think we've got to find ways of taking the protest in that direction. I'm not saying we shouldn't do protests at the ground and stuff. You know, I think it's good to do it, and it's good to keep everybody on edge with it, and keep the pressure up. But I think, you know, if we miss a week of protesting at the ground, I don't think it takes the pressure off. You know, missing a couple of weeks and things like that. I think they understand the pressure within the club. It's the pressure of BHSL. It's a long way away, and they haven't got a clue what's going on over here. They won't know whether there's a march up and down or anything like that. And so I think, yes, keep the pressure locally because we need to keep that boiling, but we've got to find some fairly innovative ways of putting some pressure in Hong Kong. Yeah.
Interesting, yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask, do you think something like social media could be a good way of getting the message out to the people over in Hong Kong? Because as you said, we can't, I guess, ship a load of Blues fans over there, but do you think something like social media could be a good way of getting that message out there? Yeah,
my view is to try and get social media out there, you know, explaining and embarrassing, and the press, some of the newspapers and the radio stations out there. I think we've got to get hold of those as well. Right, I know when we were involved with the, you know, Dong Out stuff, we got a really good article in the South China Morning Post, which pretty much embarrassed them over there, and we think that was one of the keys to getting him out. The biggest key to getting him out was that brilliant aeroplane going over and somebody arranging with Sky to get that shot of the plane and his face, which is, you know, Blues fans have
such a genius. That is.
Blues fans have got a lot of contacts and do a lot of things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, in terms of the future of the club, then, I mean, where do you think we stand? I know that's a very difficult question to answer because it could go down so many directions. But
that was my question.
What do you think Blues could look like in the next 4, 5, 10 years, however long?
So there's a negative and a positive to this, isn't there? Let's do the downside of this at the moment.
Get out of the way.
Assume the current owners string along and just carry on what they're doing, putting enough money into the club so that we don't go bust, so that there's no administration and they just keep us going. whether we're in Division 1 or Division 2, it doesn't make any difference to them, in that respect. In fact, they might have to put less money in to keep the club going. It's obviously not keeping the club going. They've got different reasons for keeping the club going than being a Blues fan or being interested in the club. And you can speculate on what all those reasons are. Obviously, one of them is keeping the Hong Kong Stock Exchange listing, which they think is worth between 50 and 100 million quid. And so spending a few million here and there to keep that asset, if you like, is something they would do. And there's loads of other theories about, where the money comes from and what goes on behind the scenes, and that's why you keep the club running. Non-provable or necessarily true, But if we carry on in that vein, basically we drop down the leagues, we lose the fan base, and the best thing that we've got is a Hong Kong Stock Exchange listing by the parent company, that's a really horrible future. Assuming though that the pressure at the moment and growing pressure means that they sell, then the future's rosy. I think if we can get somebody that comes in that buys it, there'll definitely be 2 or 3 years worth of stabilising. They've got to get the wage bill in line with everything, stuff like that, stabilising, and then I'm sure whoever would buy it would have plans about getting it stabilised and then looking to move it on to different levels. We are the proverbial sleeping giant, and everybody knows that. So there's a lot of reward for somebody who can turn it round. So
absolutely, yeah.
So I think the future in that sense. I think if you say we got sold this summer.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
I want it more than anything. But if that was the sort of time frame, then I think you got 2 or 3 seasons of reconciliation and building and stuff like that, and hopefully over that period of time, a new owner would be setting out the vision for what they want to do in the future, around grounds and stuff like that. And, we're aiming, everybody would be aiming for the Premiership, but, talking about how that could happen and things like that. And, it would be great to be having those discussions, wouldn't it? Rather than we could be bust next week. Oh, we won't because they won't even let us go bust and put us out of our misery.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly.
Because one thing sorry, Jamie, because one thing they do say actually was the fact that, obviously, because you're talking about the potential stadium, on the ground and everything, but they include safe standing in that email.
Yeah.
What did that sort of ring to you? Because it felt like a bit of diversion tactic for us for it.
I think it is. I think the stuff about the safe standing is right, and they are doing that. I think the new thing in that letter was saying that they put the money aside for it, because when they told us they were doing it in the summer at the Fans Forum last time, they put a proviso on it, subject to board approval. Now, it sounds as if they've got the board approval to do that, if the chairman's saying that. So, because he's saying categorically the money's been ring-fenced for the summer, which in one sense bodes well. They've ring-fenced the money and they're going to do it, because I don't think he'd have said that if that wasn't true. On the other hand, they might still be there in the summer. So, I'd rather him say, you know what, we don't care because we won't be there, we're selling. But
that would be better, wouldn't it?
but obviously, so that's the case. Now, I know, I mean, I don't think I'm breaking any confidences, but by saying the designs and stuff for the lower tiers now, they'll look have been done, and the designs accommodate safe standing around the Tilton, across the bottom of the Tilton.
Yeah.
If the fans vote against safe standing and want seats, then you can swap the safe standing out for seats. So they can go with what the decision is.
So it's not like the safe standing at Cardiff, is it?
I don't know.
They've got both, haven't they?
Yeah, I haven't seen the design. Yeah,
Mm.
it's I can't remember what to call it. It's there is a foldable seat within the in Cardiff one. There's like a foldable seat within it, isn't
Yeah.
there? Yeah. But I think putting seats in is cheaper than putting the soap standing in. So
Yeah.
Whatever happens, we just want that stadium full and open again, because it's been so many years now, and it's been such a shame, because I'm sure you'll agree the atmosphere just seems a bit flat at the moment, and I completely get why, because obviously the club's in a bit of a mess.
Yeah, I think the atmosphere's flat with the people in there. You know, we're just all fed up to the back teeth with it all, aren't we? I also think there's a lot of people don't go that may well go back with new owners, because lots of people I can't put numbers on it, but quite a few people I know only go to away games. They ain't going to put any money through the club down there and stuff like that. So, and there's a lot of people, you know, that I chat to who've been season ticket holders in the past that says, you know what, I can't be bothered to go down there until it's sorted out. So I think there's quite a big number of people that actually would get interested again. Although they might have found out that shopping's all right on a Saturday and not bother anymore. Although you don't get that many Saturday games anymore.
Oh, tell me about it. The season's been awful for it. There's so many Tuesday night games. It's insane.
It's painful. The World Cup has proper done over the schedule, hasn't it?
Yeah. Same with Friday nights. We've had like 4 or 5 Friday night games as well, which is just nuts.
Just brutal, isn't it? I was never particularly concerned. No, it sounds silly. You know, when people were saying, I'm not sure if the ground will get done in terms of money. I said to these to the response letter we did the other day, I said, any businessman, like anyone who let's say Birmingham City inquired and said, oh, could you do our ground for us? You'd be a fool to not take the payment in full off us, because there is no way you want to be owed money off Birmingham City.
Oh, no way.
I would imagine there might be some deposits up front. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, surely you don't want to be coming back to us going, you owe us 50 grand. Not a chance.
As a contractor with a £4 or £5 million contract, you'd want that guaranteed somehow, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
I would.
what I mean. You'd be a silly businessman not to pull that off, would you? Be like, we'll pay you later. No. Like,
most building contracts, you see, do payments, monthly payments. You know, the progress you've made, you get paid for it. I think I'd have to have some other arrangement if I was contracting to do that.
Definitely.
In law, on paper, sign that he's getting paid.
Signed in blood.
Yeah, in blood, signed.
It's usually clients that try and get a performance bond out of the contractor, you know, to know that they've got enough money to do, you know, to buy the materials and get the job done. It's the other way around.
I mean, how close are we to just getting Birmingham fans themselves, just sending it in the summer down to St Andrews and doing the stands themselves at this point? We're all getting sick of it.
Do you know what? That's possible. The more people I talk to, you know, being a member of the Blues Trust and talking to some of the other groups and stuff, there is a lot of companies out there run by blue noses that could probably. I'm not saying do a £5 million contract over it, but
for free.
certainly would be able to do a lot of the work. It would be hard to do from a club's point of view to, you know, ask the fans, have you got a company that's good enough to come and have a crack at some of this? You know, they need a proper contract and they need to do it professionally and all that lot. But, you know, that some of the maintenance and stuff at the Blues, if they got hold of some of the local companies and things like that, I think there's something there that, you know, as Blues Trust, we said we'll bring a load of people down, we'll bring a load of our members down to, you know, just do a bit of painting and tidy the place.
Yeah, a bit of a tidy the place,
and we got the. I mean, that forced them. It shamed them into, you know, putting the banners up and stuff, didn't it? You know, and tidying it up.
Oh, really?
But, yeah.
Is that one of the big reasons why those stickers and the banners got put out at the Blues?
Well, we were giving them a load of shit about the maintenance. Not just us, but the rest of the fans were as well. And and we put forward a proposal to get the fan groups down there and go around, pick the rubbish up, do some weeding and a bit of tidying up. And I think they were shamed into thinking, well, we ought to do some ourselves.
That's interesting. That is. There's one last sort of thing before we let you go. Is obviously being at Blues Trust is incredibly close to the board, the managing board at the football club. I mean, what's your relationship like with them? Is it good? Is it a productive one?
Yeah, I haven't got a relationship with the board at all. My relationship is with some of the senior managers there. Ian Dutton, obviously I can speak to Craig and stuff if I need to. And we've had meetings in the past where a couple of us from the trust have sat down with the senior team, so the finance director and stuff like that, when we were talking about the fan advisory board, to be fair, in the last year or so. So, no, I feel like I've got a relationship with Ian that, I can ring him up if I need to and say, what the hell's going on with this? And he'll be as honest as he can with me. I feel for the senior management team to a degree. One, they've been thrown into those positions because they cleared out the level of the people that a couple of years ago. So they're in positions that,
tough positions they're in.
Tough positions, maybe not with that much experience of doing them and stuff like that. So it's and in a bit of a viper's den, and they've got no autonomy to do what they think is right. They can't spend any money without going back to the board and getting it okayed and stuff like that. So I feel for them in that issue. And so, I mean, I've always said to Ian, if I can help you do your job in any way, I will. It doesn't mean I won't be putting on social media that I think we should be protesting and we want the club sold or anything like that. But I think over the time Ian's been in that position, I've got a relationship with him where we understand that, we might be saying different things in social media and that, but I think there's quite a strong relationship in so much as, he is a blue nose and he wants to do the best for the club. I understand that, and if I can help him, then I will. And to be fair, if he can help us as supporters, he will. He desperately wants the fans engaged properly and everything. It's just that in his position, with the board that he's got above him and the BHSL and the owners, they can't do anything publicly without approval. So, even this letter, maybe they could have written a letter out. I mean, we wanted it from the BHSL anyway, and so and we asked Ian to pass it on to them to get a response, which is fine, and that's what we wanted. But I just imagine the senior management team getting that in and saying, "Okay, we'll write this, that, and the other out," and then sending it out. They'd all be sacked next week, So I think they get paid for doing the job they're doing. I think we can all argue that sometimes they could do a better job than they do. When we've got a ticketing crisis or something like that, but they are sort of day-to-day running of the club. There's no strategy involved in their jobs, I don't think. That's all the board. So asking them if we can have a new stadium next year and stuff, they just got they genuinely can't answer it, I don't think.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to have a certain amount of sympathy. I don't know how much and how long the sympathy lasts for, because at some point, when do they come be part of the ownership or not? I don't think they are necessarily at the moment, but at some point, all the fans say, "Well, you're in there, do something about it." But
yeah.
They've got no power really, even though they're a senior management team in that respect, as far as I know. I think they can go to the board, and I'm pretty sure they probably do go to the board and say, this is wrong, that's wrong. But whether they get, they're going to be look after the jobs enough not to come out and say what's been going on there, aren't they? They might be round with them, you don't know, or they might be agreeing with them, you don't know. They can't say. Yeah.
That is true, yeah. That's interesting to think that is, yeah. Well, yeah, it's been great having you on, Cliff. It's been really interesting to hear your thoughts on the club and everything that goes on behind the scenes. If you want to, do you want to do like a quick sort of talk about the Blues Trust and what you offer as like a fan group?
Yeah, obviously we're a fan group. The Blues Trust is constituted legally so that we can own assets and things. We're affiliated to the Football Supporters Association. We ask our members to pay a membership fee of £5 a year. All the work that we do behind the scenes is done basically by the board members, free of charge. There's no cost. Nobody gets paid anything. It's all voluntary. Our expenses are low, and we think the membership fees are low. We need to charge a membership fee because when you become a member, £1 of that membership fee buys you a share in the trust because it's a completely democratic organisation. The reason we have an AGM every year is all the members have to vote every year as to who's going to run the trust for them, and vote a board on and stuff like that. So it is one member, one vote all the way through that. I think one of the biggest things we're trying to do at the moment is to try and pull the different supporters groups together to act as one under the Sell the Club campaign. So I think that's our biggest thing at the moment. Obviously, behind the scenes, we're working with MPs and the Football Supporters Association to get the white paper through and get independent regulation of football in, which we think will help.
Fantastic, yeah. Well, yeah, once again, thanks, Cliff, for coming on. It's been a great talk to you.
Enjoyed it.
Really, really insightful, really interesting to hear some of the stuff that goes on at the club, obviously, because there's a lot going around at the moment. There's a lot of rumours and just anything. And trying to find out, I don't know whether about you, this is just sort of like trying to find anything that's got an ounce of truth to it. Sometimes it's difficult to find out because obviously there's the Wast Hills burning down the other day as well. And immediately everybody's immediate reaction is going, it's foul play, it's done on purpose.
Yeah, apparently it was an electrical fault, but I don't know. It's I just howled because as soon as it's a terrible thing to happen, and I think they're trying at Alv Church at the moment, or not Alv.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not Alv Church.
The Wasp Stadium, I read.
Yeah. Like that, yeah.
So, but when anything, I mean, to be fair.
It's only us, isn't it?
The sympathy for the senior management team does come out a little bit because they can't buy any luck. The team can't buy any luck. They can't buy any luck administratively.
No.
The place goes up in flames, and we all just say, "Oh, God, it's the contract's been burnt." Insurance job, I'm sure it probably isn't, but it's that lack of trust, to be fair, and that non-confidence in what can go on at the club that brings the mood down. And I don't know, we're pretty good at gallows humour as well, aren't we, as Blues fans?
We love a good laugh at each other, don't we?
Yeah.
What else do we have?
Yeah.
It's literally what this podcast has turned into be, actually. After we've gone on so many games losing, we're just like, all right, what should we laugh about this week then?
What can Jamie rant about?
Yeah. It's always a rant that lifts the mood.
So yeah, thank you guys for watching. This has been the Blues Focus podcast with Cliff and the Blues Trust, and Jamie and Zach. Thank you guys for joining me again.
Anytime.
It's been good having you on. And you can be sure to follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. I'm not going to read them all out because chances are you're probably watching this on YouTube anyway. I almost had a heart attack the last time I almost read out all of our socials, so I'm definitely not doing it this time. But yeah, thank you guys for listening, and keep right on.
Keep right on, guys.